again or download the PowerPoint, or someone who wasn't able to attend tonight, that'll be available in the future. So just let me begin by welcoming everyone again, and just saying that, of course, this is unprecedented time for all of us. We're all, I think, doing our best to navigate this process, particularly the college admissions process. And we in the counseling office are doing our best to work with you and to partner with you and your students to provide the best services possible to help you get through this process, because things are changing all the time. And we know that it's a very stressful time to be a senior and to be the parent guardian of a senior. And so we will do the best we can to keep you updated with the information as it changes, and to provide you, again, with as many opportunities to gather information and make the best decisions possible. So I'm going to start right there with senior year, hopefully, if it's going to work. And now it's not working. Okay, so we're started really well. Let me try it this way. There we go, sorry. Okay, so I like to start off with just talking a little bit about senior year. So we know the senior year is usually a very stressful year for students and their families, but we know that particularly this year, it's very, very stressful because of COVID-19. There are so many uncertainties and changes to the college admissions process, and they're happening on a weekly basis, sometimes a daily basis. We're all trying to keep up with the changes. There are also concerns about SATs. We know you have many concerns, some of you, about SATs. We will get to that tonight. There's concerns about how do I visit colleges, how do I apply during this time. We also know that there may be a lot of worries about finances during this time. People may have lost their jobs, or maybe dealing with some financial struggles, and how do we pay for college? We've heard that as well. So we know that the stresses are real, the time, that everyone is feeling it. And so even though senior year is usually a year where people are, we talk about power struggles and the roller coaster of emotions, we put on top of that the stresses of people already feeling very depleted, getting through spring, hybrid models, remote models. Do I get the courses I need? How will I navigate this? How do I know where to apply? Will I be going to school remotely? Will I be going to school in person? We realize that it's stressful, and honestly, we don't have all the answers. We're going to do the best that we can to help you through this. Having said that, it still will involve a roller coaster of emotions for both seniors and their families. It's an exciting time. It's a scary time. It can be overwhelming at times. Many students and families feel pressured, irritable, angry, and sad in a normal, quote unquote, senior year. A year of transition, often seniors and their parent guardians feel separation anxiety. And it doesn't come on in September. It often comes on as the year progresses, and as we realize that our student, our senior is moving away from home. And so there are a lot of emotions that come with that. And there's a struggle for independence and control as students reach the age of 18 and want to make decisions on their own, and whose choice is it, and all of those things that are just sort of normal transition things. So be prepared for that as well. And then another thing is responsibilities, deadlines, and decisions. So while all of these emotions are going on, and the pressures and the stress, there are still things that have to be accomplished and things that have to get done. And what we have found in the past is that often seniors will procrastinate, and often earlier and earlier students develop what we call senioritis, where they're sort of done with everything. And it used to be in March, but with early action, we find that often students say, I'm pretty much done before the end of the first semester. And we need to all work together to help seniors to make the most of senior year, because that is an important year in so many ways, but in particular for college admissions. And we also find that many parents will overfunction for their senior out of a fear that deadlines will be missed. And we understand that. We know that that's a pressure. Okay, so how do you deal with all of that? I think the first thing is to gather as much information as possible. You're here tonight. I think that's terrific. Also, don't be afraid as a parent or a guardian to meet with your son or daughter or your senior's counselor. Know that every senior is meeting with a counselor. You can attend webinars. You can participate in virtual college visits and info sessions. And when I say you can, I mean a student as well as a family member. Okay. I think it's really important to reduce the stress and help seniors cope with anxiety and decision making. Over and over again, we're hearing from college admissions professionals that they realize how much stress families are going through. And the number one, they want them to take care of themselves. They want people to realize that people are working together to have the best possible decision for colleges. So in the midst of all of this, we have to remember to take care of ourselves. For parents and guardians, it's important to listen, as well as for seniors, have some empathy, provide support as emotions are gearing up. Be calm and supportive as much as you can as the adult in helping your senior to go through this process. We encourage you to guide the application process, but please don't do the work for your senior. Don't write the essay. You can manage, but please don't do the work. And then choose your battles carefully. Remember, everyone's emotions are running high during this time. And it's often, what we often see is a power struggle between seniors and their families over decision-making and all of that. And, you know, tends to happen as deadlines are getting closer and closer and parents are getting a little stressed about maybe some things not getting done. And then bottom line, try to put things in perspective. Don't sweat the small stuff. Ask for help if you need it. We're here to do that. Okay. So one of the things that I want to do is just to start with a review of graduation requirements. I want you to know, or we all want you to know, I should say, that seniors are now starting to meet with their counselor, and we have asked seniors to make those appointments, excuse me, so that we can do a credit summary, which we did at the end of junior year. But now the seniors have their courses, we want to make sure they have the required credits to graduate. So that's 23 credits, and they have to pass MCAS. All right, so what that means is they need 4 credits of English, 3 credits of science, 3 credits of math, 3 credits in social studies, 2 credits of foreign language in the same language, 2 credits of wellness and health, half a credit of music, visual arts, half a credit of technology, and then the number of electives that make up the remainder of the 23 credits. There have been some questions that have come up around wellness and health, so I'm just going to address it right now. I know there are some seniors who did not get wellness and health on their schedule this year. We are well aware of it. The principal is well aware of it because of the hybrid model and social distancing and all of that. Not every student was able to get wellness and health. Seniors should not worry about that if you don't have that requirement on your schedule, because the principal is working right now on that in terms of working on whether or not that needs to be a requirement. No student, bottom line, a senior will not be penalized for not having wellness and health this year. Right? So I know there were some questions about that. Also, in case there's a question about the alternative wellness and health opportunities, those are put on hold for the fall. Okay, so if anyone has a question on that, they can ask their individual counselor, but that's what we're told at this point. Okay, so Bellingham has graduation requirements, which I just stated, but the Massachusetts State Universities have additional requirements. And when I say Massachusetts State Universities, I mean the schools like UMass Amherst, Dartmouth, Lowell, Boston, Bridgewater, Framingham, Worcester, etc. All right, Westfield, etc. So student needs to have certain courses and pass MCAS to graduate from Bellingham High School. But in order to apply for the Massachusetts State Universities, they need to have a couple of additional requirements. So they have to have 4 credits of English, which every senior will have. But they also need to have 4 credits of math, including math this senior year. Now, we only require 3 credits to graduate from Bellingham High School, but we strongly recommend, and we check every senior's schedule to make sure they have 4 credits in math if they're planning to apply to a Massachusetts State University. So that's a really important one to note. And then 3 credits of science is the same as our requirements. 2 credits of social studies, we actually require 3, 2 credits of foreign language, and then 2 credits of electives. Okay. So now I just want to talk a little bit about college admissions criteria. So I know we're going through a tough time in terms of all the stress around standardized testing and around all of the things that students are trying to do to become competitive with colleges. The most important thing that a student can do is to take the most rigorous courses available. The most important part of the college application process is the high school transcript. We hear it over and over again. We know that it's true. And so believe us, please, when you hear that it's never more important than now, that students take the most rigorous courses and do the best that they can in those courses. The more selective the college is, the higher the requirements for honors classes or AP classes. But just do the best that you can to take the courses that are most rigorous, that you can do well in. Standardized testing, so SATs and ACTs. I want to say, and I don't know if the counselors can probably agree with me, that that's the one question we've received the most, one area we've received the most questions about. I know that people are upset about not being able to take SATs. Yes, we did cancel SATs for May and June, also for September and October. We are tentative for November. If you look around the area, that's true for almost all schools, that it's very difficult at this point to be able to access a location for SATs. The reason for that is because of safety concerns. We had to cancel because of that reason. We could not guarantee safety for 375 students in our building with enough proctors and social distancing. So that was a difficult decision, but had to be made. So then the next question that we get asked is, so what is a student supposed to do? And I understand that that's, that is really stressful. What we've been told over and over again is that I think it's about 1,500 schools, colleges now are SAT optional this year. Schools that weren't before, some of the Ivy League schools, some of them are doing it only for the class of 2021 and testing it out, and others. I mean, we've had a lot of test optional schools in the past anyway, but there are so many more now that are doing this because they don't want to penalize students for not having access to standardized testing. So I think our best advice to you is to contact the individual schools that you're applying to confirm that it's a test optional policy. If it's not a test optional policy, then you need to contact the College Board and ask them to help you find a location. When we canceled the SATs, the College Board promised that they would contact students and help them find additional locations. I understand that that did not happen and that it was very confusing. So I apologize for that, but what needed to be done on our end, we did. And so it's unfortunate that the College Board was probably overwhelmed by this, did not follow through on that. So I hope that answers some of your questions about SAT. So because the SAT is not really being utilized in the same way, the remaining parts of the college application become even more important. The transcript is the most important, but now recommendations become even more important, and the college essay become really important. And those and extracurricular activities will be mentioned later on in our presentation, so I'm not going to go into much detail about it, just so that you know that these are important criteria. I just want to mention the interview. There are a few schools that require an interview, and in most cases now it will be a virtual interview. But in most cases, in a few cases, they will be part of the evaluative process for admission. In some cases, it can be for information only, but it's very few now where you need to think about an interview. Okay, maybe in the most select colleges. Okay. And then some other criteria to think about when you're applying. If a student has a special talent, by that I mean the student is an athlete or a musician, an artist, has some special talent that the school might be interested in, or is accomplished in some way, a lacrosse player, a pitcher, I often think about sports. Definitely that should be highlighted in the college application, and that talent may meet the specific college's need. We don't always know what it is they're looking for in any given year, but a college might be looking to increase their music program, or they've offered a new, they lost their pitcher or something like that. So a particular talent a student might have might meet the needs of the college. So that's something to always highlight in the application. Then enrollment management is another area that's really important to pay attention to, although we don't always know in any given year what a college admissions team is looking for. But they're always looking to diversify their admitted class. So gender, race, ethnic group, geography, and diversity become really important. For example, sometimes a student might have an easier time getting accepted to a school in Ohio or another part of the country because that college is looking to enroll more students from the Northeast to diversify their student body. It's just something to think about as you're looking at specific colleges. Legacy comes into play if the student has a relative who attended that particular college. They might have about a 5% factor in their favor in terms of getting accepted. But it's always something to put on the application because you never know if that could help. And part of the reason behind that factor is that if that person, that parent, or aunt or uncle or something did well in that school, they probably contribute to the college. They probably are a good sponsor for the college. And so they want to definitely encourage more family members to attend. And then it's really important if the senior is a first generation college bound student. Colleges are looking to recruit more students who are the first in their family to go to college. Senior wants to make sure to let their counselor know about that. Because in our letter of recommendation, we can note that because that can also be something in a student's favor to think about. And then for this year in particular, there may be individual circumstances related to COVID-19 that are important for a student to note and that may help that student to gain admission into that college. So you want to make sure the admissions counselors are aware of your family situation. There is in fact a new question on the Common App to address this, an optional question. It's not the essay, but it's an optional essay. I think it's about up to 250 words that a student can then say if COVID-19 has had an impact on the student and family's health or their finances or something. Maybe that student hasn't been able to play that sport and is a captain of that sport, and so that's really impacted his or her ability to continue in that extracurricular area. And so that might be a place to put it. However, colleges have told us try not to use COVID-19 as your main essay unless it's really significantly impacted your family. They want to know more about the individual student, but there is a part on the Common App to address this and also for your counselor to address it. So make sure you talk to your counselor about any specific situations in your family that you want us to note and let us know. And we can note that on the Common Application as well as our letter of recommendation. Okay, and I think that is it for me. So I'm going to pause at this point and ask Ms. Taglienti about the chat. Are there any questions at this point?
Nothing right now, Dr. Triponi.
Excellent.
Continue.
All right. Thank you. Then in that case, I'm going to ask Mrs. Gorman to come forward, and she's going to talk about gathering college information.
Thank you so much, Dr. Triponi. So this is the part of the conversation where we really want to help you if you're at the point in your college process where you're still gathering your college information, you haven't maybe solidified your final college list at this point, and you're still really making those choices. We wanted to highlight some good points for you and some places to find that information. So making an appointment with your school counselor to give us an awareness about where you're at in your college planning is pretty vital to the process so that your supplemental documents, the documents that we send, the documents that your teachers will send on your behalf to complete your application, that we're all syncing up to your first deadlines that are approaching. So if you're a student or a family that has some potential colleges on your list and you have an idea that you have a first deadline, let's say in October or early November, or you want an early action as a strategy to apply, then your student really should be making an appointment with their counselor as soon as possible so that we can write all that information down and have that in our thinking so that we don't miss any deadlines for your students. So making an appointment with your counselor is a little different this year. We have the QR codes. Each student received the code in their student email accounts. We have the QR codes outside of the guidance suite. They're also outside of the lunchroom. So a student can just use their phone in between passing time, pull up the student request form for in the Google Doc and send that directly to our counseling secretary, Alyssa Lacasse, and make an appointment with their counselor. And also really paying attention to the school counseling class of 21 Google Classroom. It's also posted there along with a whole host of other, really important and vital information to this process. So the code is all around and accessible to your student, and really reminding them, have you made your first initial appointment with your counselor to discuss next steps is probably a must do after this conversation. Also, multiple appointments after that. We're available as often as your student needs us, as many times as they have a simple question or a list of questions. We want you to understand that we're partnering with you to decrease the stress in this process as much as possible. I can't highlight that enough. We're really here to make this as smooth as possible, to give you the most up-to-date information in live time. When we receive it, we're posting it as quickly as we can. Things change and information is changing so rapidly these days, and we know that that can increase the stress in this process, and we really want to cut down on that. So emailing us and certainly making frequent appointments with us will help to reduce the stress, and that's the goal. Also, attending virtual college fairs. NACAC and NEACAC has great fairs where multiple schools can attend, and that's a great time saver for families and students. There are some, deadlines to attend the fairs, so just make sure that you're checking again that Google Classroom to make sure that you're not missing any vital information related to virtual fairs hosted on that national model. Also participating in college campus tours. We have some great websites around collegetour.com, which is a great way to see the physicality of a campus. You'll have a little mini tour guide on that website that kind of helps you kind of get an overview or a general sense of the campus and their majors. Naviance, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the program tonight, is a great way to streamline the whole process. Naviance embeds built-in virtual tours. Every student's going to have an account, and my colleagues will talk about that in a little bit. So Naviance is another tool to support virtual campus tours. Also, reaching for the school's websites on your potential list is a great way to make that connection and to tour the school. Paying close attention to deadlines is vital to the process. It can either add a supportive tone to your application, or it can kind of be a negative. So formulating some kind of way to organize that aspect of the process is super important. If you miss a deadline, there's no guarantee that the college is going to accept your application. You're kind of backing into a conversation with an admissions rep and needing to have these special allowances. So, really noting your deadlines and organizing each application around that deadline is a strong recommendation to students and families. And again, we don't want to miss any deadlines on your behalf in the supporting role and getting those documents there. So being on the same page with your counselor and letting them know deadlines are coming up for you is a great way to organize the whole process. And we can't really stress this enough. I would say this is a year for communication, right? It's coming in all forms, and really establishing communication with the admissions counselors at your schools and the ones on your potential list or your final list is super important. It demonstrates extreme interest in the school. We all know that this, again, like Dr. Ciccone noted, it's not a hard science. For the smaller select schools, they're looking for personality. They're looking for that it factor where they're going to, your candidate might fit in nicely to the culture of their school. And the only way to set yourself apart in the application process is to have that relationship with your school through the admissions representatives and that office. So really taking the time to even send a general email out, this is Jane Doe from Bellingham High School. I'm super excited to apply to your school. And we'll give you some language that's appropriate to formulate those emails if you're having trouble doing that. Just having a meet and greet email is really important. It's going to demonstrate interest and set your application in a positive light for the school. You can, really either send it to a general email address at each school's website, and that's found in the admission tab. It's also really important to let the reps know where you're at in the application process, what information you're giving them. Admissions reps really note every time that you reach out for communication, either via email, your virtual tour, they're going to note that in your file. And again, that's going to be a very strong positive for the application that you're sending in and completing. So they really do, it does matter how often you reach out, and it does matter that you keep up to date with the communication with each potential college on your list. asking questions, checking their website for regular updates. Information is fluid, it's changing rapidly again. So we want to make sure that you're not using maybe old information to really organize your college application. So checking those regularly, the websites for colleges is really important, and staying in constant communication with the reps would be to your advantage, especially this school year. So how do you build out your college list? When is it enough schools? Is 5 schools enough, or 25 schools enough, or 35 schools enough? So no one really has that exact answer, right? We want you to build out a comprehensive college list that really highlights what your family and your student is valuing in their post-secondary experience. So as long as you have kind of ticked all the boxes, right, in those areas, making a plan B and even a plan C this school year is probably, again, something that's really unique to this college season. We want to, we want you to at least have, these are just suggestions on building out your college list in terms of numbers, right? So if you want to put 4 reach schools on your list, and a reach school again is, where your GPA and or some of your profile information might fall shy in what that particular college or institution is looking for. So you would statistically maybe have a little slightly less chance of getting in, right? So we would put those choices in the reach category. So having 1 or 2 options, or 3, or however many you want in that category is great. Putting all of your options in the reach category probably statistically isn't going to be great for you. So making more of your choices in the target range, right, where your GPA and your profile information is a perfect match, where you have a strong sense that you've taken the rigorous courses that this school outlines, that you're really a good academic fit and for a school, is really where we want most of your potential college or your final college list to land. And then again, the third category is a safety option, right? An academic safety and a financial safety. It could be the same institution. You don't need 2 separate ones, but we want you to at least be mindful of having at least 1 or 2 schools in that category, so that you have assurance that you're at least going to be accepted come May when you're needing to make choices. So again, most of your schools we want to be in the target range, a few in the reach range where you're statistically maybe not as likely to get in, and then some schools in the safety range where you're really going to have some advantage of gaining acceptance. So the mass transfer option. 2-year schools have such a stigma, right? We all know that. And we want to lift that for families and students and really bring some attention to the mass transfer in a positive way. This is such a great opportunity for those students who may be undecided. They may not know exactly what they want to study. They may need to gain some academic confidence. They may have a lower GPA than they want leaving high school, and they want to just increase their GPA going into maybe a more rigorous and select college option in their 4-year college plan. So mass transfer has a lot of great options for families and students. You would begin at a 2-year school, you would complete your associate's degree within about 2.5 years, and then be transferring right into a 4-year state university college option on one of the Massachusetts campuses. And completing your bachelor's degree within that 2-year timeline are all kind of guidelines around the parameters of the A to B mass transfer degree option. So it proves to save a lot of money. You end up really getting tuition freezes. You end up getting automatic transfer from a 2-year school into like a UMass Amherst Eisenberg School of Management, so that's one of the more select majors on UMass's campus. And so starting off at the 2-year college route would give you like a smoother pathway. Oftentimes you don't have to submit an essay. It doesn't require standardized test scores in the application process. So it takes a lot of like the legwork out of the process, and it streamlines it. It makes it a lot more manageable for students. So if that feels like where your family might be at in the process, you might want to just log on to this website and get a lot more information about this option if and feel like it's a good fit for your family. And if you want to know more about it, certainly you can have your student discuss that at their individual appointment with their counselors. And I think, Dr. Schiponi, that was my portion of the presentation.
Yes. Sorry, I started to talk without unmuting myself.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you for that. And I want to pause for a moment to look at the chat. And Ms. Taglienti, I want to see how we're doing.
Sure. Yeah, I just want to go back a little bit. A few parents had asked about reimbursement for SAT testing, and just make sure you're contacting College Board for everything related to questions around SAT registration and reimbursement. When you register for the SAT through College Board, your payment goes directly through them. So we have no part in being able to provide reimbursement or even directions on how to do that. So our best advice would be to contact the College Board and explain your situation. I haven't heard if they're doing reimbursement or not. I would assume that they have to be, but that would be a question to direct towards College Board. We also had a couple of questions about FAFSA, and I know we'll talk a little bit about financial aid later in our presentation, but just making sure parents are aware about MIFA, the Mass Educational Financing Authority. They are our go-to for financial aid questions, and they should be your go-to for financial aid questions as well. There's a bunch of great resources on their website. They're doing many virtual presentations similar to this exclusively on financial aid. So any questions about financial aid, you should be seeking out MIFA. Go ahead, Dr. Triponi.
Right, and I was just going to say, and we do on our last screen tonight, we do have the website for that will take you directly to the virtual webinars that they're offering on college financing. And the FAFSA does open up October 1st, as well as the CSS profile. So it's very timely. And also some of the College Guidance Network videos that are coming up are also addressing financial aid and helping families to do that. So definitely, you know, that's an important issue. And we usually have someone, as Ms. Taglienti said, coming from MIFA to do a presentation. They are doing no in-person presentations this year. So everything is virtual. And you'll get the same information on their website. Thank you. Anything else? Are we good?
Just a couple questions about GPA and class rank, and about, is that updated from last year? Has that been included in transcripts?
That has been updated, and it will be included in the first quarter transcript, yeah. However, it's a little bit different this year, but yes, that will, before we send out transcripts, we will look at all of that for sure. Yeah. Thank you. The class rank we do not give out. We look at class rank for the third quarter only. So our transcripts do not provide class rank, only GPA. Okay.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you. All right, so now Mr. Devlin is going to begin talking about admissions policies. Mr. Devlin?
So before you start, Mr. Devlin, I just want to say if anybody has any more specific questions about GPA, please contact your seniors counselor directly. We'd be more than happy to talk about when it's recalculated, how often it's updated, and questions like that. And if it's a case where a transcript has already been sent out, it can always be resent with an updated transcript. So just contact your child's individual counselor and we can give you more information.
And again, Ms. Taglienti, I just want to highlight, like, some of the seniors may have access to the transcript, but that's considered an unofficial copy, right? So all official copies that will complete a college application need to come from the desk of the school counselor. So if you sent a transcript to a college, you know, through your own email portal or your students, it's really still considered unofficial. Okay, so just to make that distinction, the official transcript definitely has to come from your school counselor.
Right. And our policies have changed this year. We are utilizing very little paper. And so a lot of the things, if you might have had for some parents or guardians, you might have had a senior last year or the year before. Some things have definitely changed. And we're going to go through some of that tonight, just to keep you updated on the way that we're giving out that information. So thank you for that. Great. Mr. Devlin?
Okay, good evening, everybody. I just saw a question about what if a school requires class rank. If you're doing the Common App, there's a class rank section, and because we don't offer class rank, you can check off the none box.
Mhm.
And that takes care of class rank. Okay, so I'm going to talk about further admissions issues.
You're breaking up, Mr. Devlin. Could you?
Considerations. And the first one is early decision versus early action. And early decision is pretty rare at Bellingham High School. It's very, oh, okay. Okay. How am I doing now?
Better?
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Just a little louder, Mr.
Yeah.
Devlin, too, if you would.
Okay, so early decision. Okay, good. Early decision is a tough. Okay, early decision is a tough one because you are entering into a very significant contractual agreement with the college, and if you decide to apply early decision, you're telling that college that that is where you want to go if accepted, and that's where you will go if accepted.
Mhm.
It's a binding decision, and you can only do one school as an early decision admissions program. And the deadlines for that would be early to mid-November deadlines. So it's critical that you have all your stuff organized and ready to roll, and that you're working very closely with your counselor, letting them know that you are going to be doing early decisions. I think last year we had a few early decisions, and that was a rare year.
Mhm.
And now early decision is as opposed to early action. Most of our students would apply early action, which is non-binding, and you can apply more than one school. And those early action deadlines occur in November or early December deadlines. And the theory is why you would do early action. Well, that you would have a smaller applicant pool, and maybe you're increasing your chances of being accepted into a school. However, there's so many students do early action now that it's not quite the advantages as it used to be. But a number of our students do early action. Now, that would be as opposed to regular decision, where you're not doing anything early, you're just applying to school or schools. These decisions are non-binding. You can apply to as many schools as you want. 3 years ago, I had a student apply to 44 schools. That's correct, 44, you heard it. And those deadlines are usually from January to March. And so many of our students do regular decision. And then there's a thing called rolling admissions. And with rolling admissions, you apply, you get a decision relatively quickly. Colleges don't wait till all their applications are in. They review them as they get them, and often you'll get a decision within 3 to 4 weeks. And students will apply around Thanksgiving in the middle of November. They might know by Christmas whether they've been accepted to colleges, and that is a wonderful thing. And then there are open admissions. This would be typically a 2-year school where the admissions requirement is the high school diploma or the high step. So it's easy to get in, not so easy to get out. So that's kind of the theory there. So they want to make college available to anybody who's a high school graduate, and but then you have to perform. Now, we've talked about test optional policies a little bit tonight, or actually quite a bit tonight. And many schools are going standardized testing optional because of the difficulties with COVID-19. For example, in Bellingham, we had over 300 students sign up for the October SATs. We just couldn't accommodate that many students safely. And we're finding out almost daily, we're getting emails from colleges that they are going standardized testing optional. And colleges are well aware of the fact, and they're becoming more aware of the fact that rigor of transcript of the courses you've taken and your GPA are a better indication of success in college. And so for a lot of colleges, the value of the SAT score is questioned by a lot of colleges. And we've known that as counselors. We have students that perform well in school with very challenging programs to study, but do not test well. And we know that rigor of schedule and GPA are a better indication of whether a student will be successful in college. Now, test optional policies can vary from school to school. For example, some schools may exclude the test optional policy for students applying to certain majors. So a college may be hybrid test optional depending on the major you're applying to. So that's important to make sure you know what the school's test policies are. And also, some schools may require standardized testing for merit-based scholarship money. And that you want to make sure that you get on the school website, contact the school to find out whether standardized testing affects merit-based scholarship money. I now want to move over to the slide that mentions Naviance for the first time. So let's go to that one. Okay, Mrs. Tagliani, could you move me to this slide that says Naviance student?
It's there, Mr. Devlin, Naviance student.
Mrs. T, next slide.
It's there. I changed it.
Yeah,
Can we
Bob, I
move
think
to
your
the next slide,
connection
please?
might be a little behind. Are you able to see the slide?
Mrs. T, can you move me to the next slide? There we go.
You're on the
Yep,
next
okay.
slide, Mr. Devlin?
Yep.
It's
Okay.
on
So
Naviance.
now,
Can you see it?
You know, I think I can just
Okay.
do these slides because his internet connection
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it's
That would be
working very
great.
well right now. Yep.
Thank you, Miss.
So,
Thank you.
yep, no problem. So Naviance Student is an online platform that our school district and many other school districts subscribe to. So it's free to our students and for parents to use. It's a great resource that has a lot of comprehensive information about a bunch of different colleges, deadlines, virtual tours. It's pretty much a virtual database of college information. And the other part that we use Naviance for is to send out materials, supporting materials for your students' applications, like their transcript, college profile, secondary school report. All of those things get sent to the college electronically through the Naviance platform. So it functions really on two different sides. For the student side, they can do a lot of research about colleges they're interested in. And then on our side, there's a lot of organizational components that we need students to become familiar with in order for us to be able to send out their supporting materials electronically. So all seniors last year had received access to Naviance with a username and password in a classroom format when we were able to go in and do a personality inventory with juniors last year before the school closure. But if a student has forgotten their information, it's an easy fix. Just they should contact the school counseling office and we'll be able to reset their username and their password so that they can gain access to Naviance. It's also something that we are going over extensively with each student in their individual senior appointments with their counselors. So and some of the appointments that I've personally had with students this week, both in person and virtual, I've been able to help students get on with their password and actually upload their college list into Naviance. So some students already know where they're applying. I can help them input those colleges into their colleges I'm applying to list on Naviance. And that's how we know as counselors what schools that the students are applying to. So it shows us where the student's applying, if they're applying using Common App or directly to the institution, and also what their deadline is. Are they applying early action? Are they applying regular decision? So it gives us the deadlines, and it also gives the student the deadlines. So they're able to see that information on their end, and we're also able to view that information on our end. It's really, really, really important, and I can't reiterate this enough. It's mandatory for your student to upload their college list into the colleges I am applying to section on Naviance. If they don't do that, there's no way for the counselor to know where they're applying and when they're applying. So students and parents, if you want to support your student in that process, should become familiar with Naviance and especially the colleges I'm applying to list, because all students applying to college will need to use that function. If you have questions on Naviance, every counselor is well versed in it, and just give us a call, shoot us an email, and we'll be able to explain to you what you can do to help your student access it and to make sure they're organized with that part of the process, because we also use that for letters of recommendation, which I believe I talk about in a few slides.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So in terms of the application process, so there's the general application process that every high school goes through, and then Bellingham High School has their own unique process. But before I get into that, I just want to talk about the Common Application, because we get a lot of questions each year on what is Common App. So 20 years ago, before Common App existed, when you applied to college, you had to submit an application to each college you applied to. So if you applied to 10 colleges, you would be submitting 10 separate, or mailing out 10 separate applications. Now that everything is done online, the Common App was created and about 900 colleges subscribe to it, which means that you fill out one application and you can send it to multiple colleges. The tricky piece about Common App is that not all colleges accept it, even though many of them do. So that leaves students wondering, should I use it? Do I make a Common App account? And your child's counselor can help them with that decision. For UMass Amherst, for example, requires the Common Application. Some colleges will accept the Common Application or their own application, and then some colleges will only accept their application. So I usually advise students to create a Common App account, and through Common App you can search for colleges and see if they subscribe to Common App. And many of the popular schools that our students apply to are on Common App. Some of the smaller state universities are not, like Worcester and Westfield, Fitchburg, Salem. They have their own application called Direct to Institution. So students applying to those schools may not need to use Common App, but it really depends on the student, and it depends on which schools they're applying to. And that's how you need to decide whether or not you're going to use Common App. Another part of the application process, in a normal non-COVID year, many students would have taken SATs at least twice at this point. And the student would be responsible for those SAT scores being reported to each of the colleges that they're applying to. So that's going to be a rarity this year, because many, if not all of our students are in the same situation as we talked about earlier, where there just were no SATs to be taken. So many don't need to worry about that. If you're wondering about SAT optional schools, fairtest.org is a great resource. You can look at their extensive list and link to each college's policy regarding SAT scores. So check out fairtest.org if you have a question about that. And also check out each college's admissions website. You can find admissions policies listed under the admissions tab, and many have updated a special section of their website for COVID-19 related policy questions. Gathering applications. So I just want to be clear that the student has to submit their application, whether it's Common App or an application going directly to an institution. The student will submit that. And then the counselor submits the supporting documents, which include the transcript, letter of recommendation from the counselor, secondary school report, and school profile. So the student is responsible to submit their application. They can do that from home. They don't need to do that with us. What they do need to make sure they do is put their list into Naviance so that we know when and where to send their information. And in order to send that information, we need your permission because a transcript is a legal document. We need to get an authorization from both the student and the parent that it's okay to send that legal document to the schools your child's applying to. Normally, we would do that through a piece of paper that we send home with students. For those of you that have had students apply to college through Bellingham High School, it was called the Green Sheet. We are not doing the Green Sheet this year because we're trying to limit the amount of paper that's passed around. So we are asking students and their parents and guardians to sign off on the transcript release form. For students, it's on their Google Classroom for the class of 2021. And for parents, it will be shared through a Google form to your email, and you can type in your signature, and that way we have that on file and we can send your child's transcript to where it needs to go. We cannot legally send that transcript without your authorization, so that's something that you should do first. When that information comes out to your email, make sure you're signing off on that form. Is there anything in the chat that I should be looking at, Mrs. Gorman or Dr. Chaponi?
No.
Okay, I see. When will that be sent? So the form is being posted on Google Classroom this week, and parents will receive that in an email this week as well.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay. So before you start this, so there's one more question that just came in. Can you speak to letters of recommendation? How many who are letters
Sure.
from?
Yeah, Dr. Chaponi, would you mind just going back a couple of slides
Sorry,
for the—
did I miss one? I'm sorry. I wondered if I did. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay.
That's okay, yeah. There, do you see it?
Here we go. Yep. So typically each college will require 2 letters of recommendation from teachers and 1 from the school counselor. There's no formal request process for the counselor recommendation. We will automatically write that letter for the students. For teachers, the students must request teacher recommendations through Naviance. And it's a very simple process. We don't do envelopes anymore to send through the regular mail. All your student would need to do is log into their Naviance account, select the teacher that they're asking the letter of recommendation for, and then Naviance sends an automatic request to the teacher, who then gets that request and can upload their letter of recommendation and send it to the schools that your child has indicated they're applying to. So that's all done electronically. There's no need for envelopes or stamps anymore, which is great. And in terms of sharing that information with teachers, we have a teacher recommendation information form, which is essentially a brag sheet where your student has the opportunity to talk about their educational goals, their career aspirations, their most rewarding experiences throughout high school. And that form is filled out by the student and then shared with their counselor, and then also their 2 teachers that are writing the letter of recommendation for them. And they can fill that out right through the Google Classroom, and it's a Google Doc that they can just share with teachers and their counselor. The directions for how to do that are already posted in the Google Classroom, and they were also emailed to students as well. And then the college essay, am I going too fast? I'm looking at the chat kind of as I'm doing this. Recommendations for other sources as well. So that procedure that I just talked about with Naviance is for in-house letters of recommendation only. So if you are in a situation where you want a karate instructor or someone from outside of Bellingham High School to provide a letter of recommendation, you should contact the school and ask them what would be the best way for my child, or the child should contact the college and ask what the best way to submit that letter would be. And then for the college essay, I know we had some questions on the Google form that people submitted questions to prior to tonight. The essay is one essay that you write that can be sent to multiple colleges, and the essay is submitted through the application. For Common App, it's uploaded directly to that application, and for the other applications as well, it's something that gets sent along with the child's application. So in terms of when is the essay due, the essay has to be sent with the application as part of a complete application. Mm-hmm. Some colleges don't require an essay, but most of them do. It's just up to the individual college to set the expectations and the requirements for their admissions process. And so the goal of the college essay is to write the essay that only you can write, meaning any kind of circumstances that have affected you, or experiences you've had, or something that you feel really strongly about. What we hear from admissions counselors is that they want to read something unique. They want to read something that makes them happy, that makes them smile, that leaves them feeling really good about this applicant. Many admissions reps will report to us that they read a lot of similar essays about how sports helped with time management, or how you know, going through a certain experience and being able to overcome it has demonstrated perseverance. And those essays are really good, and we're proud of our students for being able to write about those things. But it's really important to try to come up with something in your essay and a topic for your essay that only you can write. And in my experience, this is the hardest part of the essay, of the application for our students. It seems to hold up the application a little bit because it takes the longest. But any senior who's enrolled in a English class for the first semester, English teachers will be working with your students. And for those students that aren't, there are multiple videos that we've posted in the Google Classroom, tutorials, and really just videos with additional tips on how to generate and brainstorm some topics to write about. Mm-hmm. Is there anything in the chat?
I'm trying to answer them as they're coming in, but you know, a few of them are just, you know, should the recommendations come from, you know, teachers of different subjects. And I just explained that, you know, typically teacher recommendation letters come from core class teachers that students had either in 11th grade or currently this year in 12th grade. And remember, you know, one of the recommendation letters typically has to be a teacher, but if your student has leadership in a sport, or a long relationship with a coach, or they've been dancing their whole lives, or they have a management position in a job, that's going to be a very nice addition to the recommendation letter sent from the teacher. So those are very specific to the student's individual hobbies and or extracurricular activities. So their individual counselor can give them recommendations on how to approach that part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. And the last slide, Ms. T, on the certification, NCAA.
Yep, so some of our students, athletes, will be applying to schools to play sports. There is a process through the NCAA that needs to be completed by these students if they're applying to Division I or Division II NCAA schools. So it does not apply to Division III schools. If a student's just applying to Division III, they don't need to complete this process. But if they're considering either a Division I or Division II sport at a school at that level, there's a certification process that the student has to go through, and you can register at ncaa.org. Please notify your counselor so that we can upload the transcript to the NCAA. And then we'll also have to send a final transcript to the NCAA, and they review the transcript to make sure that all of the credits that the student has earned in high school are aligned with their requirements for student athletes, which is not an issue because our courses for the most part are level 2 courses and level 3 courses, which are recognized by the NCAA. So it's more of a formality than anything else. But for students who are considering Division 1 or 2, they need to complete this process or else they won't be able to participate at the college level until they do so.
Thank you.
So there's one question, Ms.
Mhm.
Taglianti, that came up in the chat. Would you recommend a third party to guide a student through writing an essay like campusbound.com? What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Schiponi?
Well, I think we could all answer that. I think a family should do whatever they feel is in the best interest of their student. However, I don't think it's necessary to do something like that. I think that there are so many resources out there. English teachers, counselors who can help. There are a lot of videos out there that we've also provided. If anyone saw the College Guidance Network video last week, it was on writing essays. And there are a lot of ways to get that assistance without paying for it. So, but it's certainly a personal decision, I think.
Thank you.
I was just going to say too that some colleges will even post on their admissions pages examples of good essays too. That hasn't been a popular practice in the past, but I think more and more college reps want to help students with their essays. They want it to be a highlight of their application and not something that necessarily is detrimental for their application. So for the most part, anything that the student feels confident in writing about, that's not necessarily going to be a negative essay or leave the admissions rep feeling sad or angry or anything like that, would be something good to write about. It shouldn't be forced. It should be something that the student's comfortable with. And it's not a long essay. It's a candid essay. It can be funny. Students can write from different perspectives. It doesn't have to be a generic, typical 5-paragraph essay.
Right, and don't make the essay having to be a perfect essay. What college admissions folks tell us is that it has to be grammatically perfect, for sure. You want as many people to proofread it as possible, but have fun with it. Choose a topic that they don't often see, or choose a spin on a topic, like you were saying about sports. Do it from a different angle, something different. But they also want to get a glimpse for the essay, particularly this year, on who the student is and how that student might be a really good fit to that particular university. If you're using the Common App, of course, it's a generic. You're sending that essay out to all of your schools or the schools that accept Common App. But really think it through. But as Ms. T had said before too, often this is the part of the application that students procrastinate on because it feels like such a daunting task. It doesn't need to be. And if you're in English class this semester, you'll be doing a college essay. For those students who are not in English this semester, the English department is already working on some ways of helping those students. So it's good to get started on it and not miss any deadlines, but don't turn it into something that you procrastinate on because you're afraid that it has to be perfect. And we're here, we're available to critique and to help you also with essay topics. Okay. Anything, I'll finish up and then we'll see if there's anything else in the chat. So just the last slide, please don't forget, very importantly, please schedule an appointment with the school counselor as soon as possible. So if there aren't many seniors on this call and they're mostly family members, please encourage your senior to make that appointment as soon as possible. We're already meeting with seniors and we'd like to do that quickly so that students can continue this process and make sure they don't miss any deadlines. We know that some students are still working on college lists. Some of them have already begun the application process, started Common App, and there are some that really need some additional help to get started. So the sooner we hear from them, the sooner that we can help. As has been said already, please check our class of 2021 Google Classroom. There's lots of good information, resources, college updates, and the link is in the PowerPoint. So when you go to Google Classroom, you can get this PowerPoint as well, and then you can join. Please attend a virtual college fair. Again, there's some dates here. Most of them are NACAC, which means that they're national college fairs. There's hundreds of colleges there. The students can search for the ones that seem, very interesting. And actually, in many ways, it's a really positive thing because typically when we do our college fair, it's very local and there are about 50 colleges. Now students have an opportunity to look at colleges all over the country. So I think that's a really positive thing for our students. And then as far as financial aid, we typically do a financial aid workshop in October, like we said earlier. We're not able to do that this year, but it's the same group, MIFA, Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, is offering all kinds of financial aid webinars, and we strongly encourage families to participate in those. They also have some great chat functions, an opportunity to meet with different counselors if you have questions. It's just a great resource. And then we also want to encourage you to attend any of the College Guidance Network webinars on college admissions. There have been 2 so far. There's another one tomorrow night. We've been sending out the Zoom links for that. And there's some excellent information there. They post if you missed any of them, they're posted on their website. So you can view the webinars when you have time. And then to please follow us on Twitter for updates at BHAM Counseling. And so just before we end, I just want to see if there's anything else in the chat or any questions that we need to answer.
Just a couple that Ms. Gorman and I have been monitoring. So the links to this presentation after it's over, probably sometime this week, will be posted to the BHS website, our school counseling website, and also the Google Classroom so that students can view it.
Great.
And just looking now, AP registration deadline, and where do we get the codes for College Board?
So definitely contact Mrs. Masterson, all right, and she can give that information to students and families because she's been sending out a lot of information. So talk to the AP teacher, but especially talk to the AP coordinator, Mrs. Masterson, for that information. Okay, anything else? I can't see the chat, otherwise I would help out with that. So
someone has a question on how to make an appointment with a counselor. So if it's a student that wants to make an appointment, they just need to use the counselor appointment request form, which is in the Google Classroom. That link is in their email. It's also posted in various places around the school for those students that are in the building. So that's how a student would make an appointment. If you're a parent and you'd like to make an appointment, we aren't allowing visitors as a school into the building this year, but we can do a virtual appointment through a Google Hangout. So you would just request that directly through an email to your child's counselor.
Great.
Looks like where and how do we join the Google class of 2021? So just like you would any other Google Classroom that your child is in, there's a parent invite that goes along with that. So that's how you would just get access to the parent end of the Google Classroom.
And your senior can also, you can share that as well.
Yep, your senior can also invite you to the Google Classroom as well. But it's just like we set up a Google Classroom this year, just like all the other classes in the courses that your students are taking. It looks like that might be it.
All right. Well, thank you. We want to thank everyone for coming tonight to our first virtual college night. And we thank you for being here, and we look forward to partnering with you again in helping your senior and the seniors that are here and helping you to gain admission to hopefully the college of your choice. And again, don't hesitate to contact us, and we look forward to meeting with you. Have a great night, and remember that this will be posted soon if you have any other questions. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you, counselors.
Thank you.